Hello, my name is David Bergmanson, and for the July 13th, 2021 edition of the World Weather Watcher, we're going to be looking at weather variability and how it's impacting farmers. When we look to the last 30 days, we see that rainfall in the western part of the United States has been below normal, as has been the case for the northern part of South America, as well as Southeast Asia, with rainfall above normal for much of Europe, especially France, for example, and also up in northern Canada above normal rainfall. When we zoom in to two examples, one in the north part of South America, Araca, Colombia, the northern part of the Amazon, we see that rainfall has been below normal, indicated by the blue bars being below the gold line, which is the long-term normal. Whereas when we go to Reims, France, we see that rainfall has been well above normal for much of the growing season, and this is actually potentially leading to waterlogging and could result ultimately in yield loss due to waterlogging. When we look to the next 15 days, we see that continuing below normal rainfall for much of Canada, also parts of Central Africa, as well as the western part of India and Southeast Asia. When we look to the maximum temperature over the last 30 days, we see that for Western Canada, the United States, that temperatures have been about 5 degrees Celsius warmer than normal, which is significant, leading to the high risk of forest fires. We also see that for the eastern part of Europe, as well as Russia, well above normal weather temperatures there as well as for the southern part of Africa. When we zoom into the northern part of Europe, going over to Scandinavia and to Western Russia, we see that, for example, in St. Petersburg, Russia, that the temperature has been about 5 degrees Celsius warmer than normal, which is really significant and certainly evidence of climate change. But we're seeing this trend in both precipitation and temperature variability increasing, especially in northern latitudes. When we look to the next 15 days, we see that continuing above normal temperatures for much of Canada, while we also see the same for the central part of Africa, and slightly cooler conditions for the central part of Europe, as well as the central part of the United States and Mexico. When we look to this critical ratio for rain-fed agriculture, that's the ratio of precipitation to potential evapotranspiration, we see that areas in red are areas where this index is not sufficient to support rain-fed agriculture, which normally is a threshold around 0.8. And the areas in green are areas where there is sufficient moisture in the soil to support rain-fed agriculture. So we see for much of southern Mexico, for example, that this index is sufficient to support rain-fed agriculture, as is the case for the northern part of South America. Much of West Africa, although we will talk a little bit more about Cote and Ghana shortly, and also much of Europe, and we'll talk a little bit more detail here as well, where precipitation has been significant. So when we zoom into Eastern Europe, we see here in Donetsk, Ukraine, that the ratio of P over PT is around 0.6, and this is well above the normal ratio that we see for that area, which is around 0.6 to 8. Highly variable, but in that range. So it's a significantly wetter season this year for this part of Ukraine. Now, when we look to the next 15 days for this ratio, we see that continued dry conditions for the western part of Canada, the United States, leading to continued concern around forest fires and also drought of crops. We see good conditions, though, in the northern part of South America, for much of Western Africa, as well as most of India, especially the eastern and central parts of India. When we look to the forecast for precipitation in the next 15 days, we see very dry conditions along the western part of the United States, while we see significant rainfall for the north part of South America, most of India, and reasonable rainfall for both the Sahel of Africa as well as for Europe. When we zoom into West Africa, we see the last 30 days that this P over PET ratio has been significant all the way along the coast, supporting rain-fed agriculture. However, in the next 15 days, we see this dry corridor emerging from Cote d'Ivoire into the central and northern part of Ghana, which will be a problem for rain-fed agriculture in these countries. When we look to India, we can actually see over time, the last 30 days, the past 7 days, and the next 15 days, how the monsoon has been moving from the eastern part of India across the Indo-Gangetic Plains and extending up to the northwest. And so this is good news for smallholder farmers in India. There is a drying trend here in the southern part of India that we need to keep track of, but overall the monsoon is doing quite well in India. When we look to actual rainfall in India, we see that it's highly variable, with the west coast of India showing extreme rainfall events in the forecast. We also see the central part of India doing well as far as sufficient rain to support agriculture. But when we zoom into a place like Kanpur in Andhra Pradesh, we see that the rainfall has been highly variable. Some weeks not existent compared to the long-term normal, and in other weeks extremely high rainfall, potentially leading to flooding when we have this amount of rain in such a short period of time, and then dropping back again to well below normal rainfall as the monsoon season progresses. So this was a real challenge for farmers in managing this rainfall variability, especially when they're dependent on the rains to support their crops. If analytics like this are of interest to you, go to apps.aware.com, where you can start your weather analytics journey. Until next week, take care.